Hey, welcome back to This Week in Pharmacy. What an amazing interview with Claudia, somebody that's so passionate. Uh, I've known her now through TikTok for a little over a year. And when I first heard about Claudia from one of our PBM reform independent community pharmacy owners through PUT, through Pharmacies United for Truth and Transparency, I immediately saw that passion in her and the honesty and the frustration that she feels for her clients and her patients. And I'm like, that's exactly what community pharmacy is going through. This entire episode is built specifically because we want to focus and drill down on the thrivability of community pharmacy, because community pharmacy is turning into long-term care at home, and it's turning into consultancy. It's turning into remote patient monitoring. It's turning into more medication management and digging down into diabetes and hypertension and specialty disease states. We know the opportunities that are going to be coming from our independent community pharmacies. So I came from the data side. I came from the technology side way back in 2004. One of the first integrations that I personally got involved with, and I didn't write out any spec or anything for the API or anything, but I did understand the value of data based on long-term care data that was being used. The first partner that I remember this real interesting API, and I don't write the code, but they did all the code writing, was between Framework LTC and SureCost. And now SureCost was just a game changer because it was almost like putting magnifying glasses on your head and always seeing more data and more perspectives and more trends. And that's evolved. So I want to welcome back Calvin Hunsicker to the show. Welcome to Twerks, Calvin. It's so good to have you here.
Yeah, likewise, Todd. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
How's your week been?
Week's been awesome. Yeah, week's been great. How about yours?
It's been good. It's hot in Pittsburgh. It's in the west southwestern area. It was sunny for 3 days, and it was between 95 and 98. And now it's going back to rain on and off, and it's humid as all humid. So if I go outside, I have to jump in my pool.
Yeah, well, I'm in Maine, so not much different here, believe it or not. So I think we're kind of much of the same weather, unfortunately, but it is changing, which is good.
All right. So something that happens every year is the publication of the Smarter Purchasing Report for pharmacies. And the first time that you came on and your team came on, we dug into that report. We dug into the specifications. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, just go to your podcast player, go to Pharmacy Podcast Network, and you'll find the episode that just came out a week or two ago. But the 2025 Smarter Purchasing Report is out there. You go to SureCost.com. It's easy to find. It's under resources, and click fill out your name and start reading and digging in. But this is a big deal, and it's a bigger deal than ever, Calvin. I don't have to tell you, because of all of your users and clients are witnessing that if we don't squeeze out of our systems as much savings as possible in today's vital situation, then our independent community pharmacies, one by one, are going to become a pharmacy desert statistic, and there's going to be less resources for a growing society. Our population is not shrinking, it's growing. So let's start out, just in case people didn't hear our discussion last time. Let's talk about your concept of future-proofing the business of independent community pharmacy.
Yeah, I think to your point, it's, when I was in pharmacy, back in the day, we had probably at least a 10% improvement in gross profit than what you have today. So there's been a reduction of gross profit margins for pharmacies. There is the PBMs have kind of taken over control, not just on the payer side, but also even on the purchasing side. They've negotiated contracts, so they're even taking a slice out of that as well from pharmacy. So procurement, the purchasing side, cost of goods, is the biggest expense that pharmacy has. So anything you can do to actually minimize that cost as much of that is going to the bottom line as anything that you would do in your operation. Obviously, efficiency of staff would be the number two, but streamlining your purchasing, understanding your agreements, maximizing that potential is huge. And it's a necessity now. It wasn't before. I think there was enough room that I think pharmacies still got by, and you could do okay. Today, you need a laser focus on that data and understanding those decisions, and that data changes day to day. So it's not something that you can kind of set it and forget it. It is something that you have to have a system to manage with, for sure.
Just in case our listeners chiming in, they're listening in, they didn't realize, what can they find with the 2025 Smarter Purchasing Report? What does it, is it, like, what are they looking at? What are they reading? What's the summary of that report?
Yeah, no, it's so what we did with the report was we were able to take our customers and the data within our customers, and we distilled that down to what would be a general pharmacy. We have we do have some large single entity pharmacies. We have some chains and so on. Again, these are not public chains, but these are still private chains. So we wanted to represent what the typical pharmacy would see. And then using that data, some of the things that we measured was, cost, basically the savings that our system would generate. And of those savings, how much of that was within the top 200? Because I think, that's one of the areas that folks look at. And how much of it was outside the top 200. And what we found is, and this is over the last 3 years, a majority of the savings is outside the top 200. So, and that is really impossible to do without a system that's looking at both your primary purchases and the pricing that's there today, as well as your secondaries. And a lot of those savings don't hurt your primary vendor agreement, because those items typically don't drive your generic compliance ratio. And there's a lot of savings opportunity there. So we found a bigger chunk of the savings was there. And actually, of the savings, the percent of savings was higher in that space as well, and beyond the top 200. Some of the other opportunities was, properly receiving your product. We found in pharmacies, and this was always a surprise to me, was that there is a fair amount of mistakes made in shipping. And again, this could be with the vendor side, this could be internal to your operations, but which would point to shrinkage or movement of product that's not going to your shelves appropriately. So having control around your receiving process and validating that against what was purchased and what you're being billed for or invoiced for is critical. We found variances there. Obviously, if you have any contracts, we found discrepancies in contracts. Our system audits all those things real time. And then there's the reorders that happen behind the scenes where you have auto sub turn on with your primary, they're subbing product for you. And what is that costing you in those substitutions? There could be margin compression there based on reimbursement. There could be, higher costs based on a higher priced item. And there's really no rhyme or reason. They're going to they typically sub to their source items, but there isn't really a direct, I guess, as far as like feedback to you to let you know that actually happened. So putting control back into the pharmacies to actually make those decisions has been pivotal for our customers as well.
And it doesn't matter how many sources that this independent community pharmacies have. You can load up as much data in there, however many secondary wholesalers that you have tried and or used. It doesn't matter. There's no limit to that, right?
There's no limit. I mean, obviously, I think, depending on the size of the pharmacy, there's diminishing returns. You get too many secondaries. You can only, they have minimum purchase spend, things like that you're actually going to start not having enough volume to hit that with, if let's say you were to say, hey, I'm going to add 10 vendors. Now, again, it depends on the size of the operation. You're super large, you're buying a lot of generics, then you have more room to do that. A smaller independent pharmacy, I would say the average would be to at least have 2 or 3, secondaries on, just so you have. And we also kind of use it as insurance policy. You're using this as a way to make sure that your primary vendor and your pricing that you have is competitive to the market. And if it's not, evaluating that against your primary vendor agreement to ensure that you do want to maximize your primary vendor agreement with your maximization rebates, and hitting those GCR targets that you want to hit, which is the generic compliance ratio targets. And if you do, great. If there's opportunity outside, take advantage of that opportunity. That's money, in your operation that you absolutely need. And the other part is fulfillment. There's been drug shortages, as we all know. That's been a continual issue with the industry. And so, if your primary vendor can't fulfill items, you want to have those products in stock because, obviously your patient's going to need that. And that's a level of service and obviously patient care that you want to have those items available when they come in to have those filled. So having diversity helps, that as well.
You know what I forgot to ask you last time is the world of 340B and the world of special contracting and the world of potentially maybe getting involved in a specialty medication. But 340B specifically, is there a way to see certain data if you're classifying a bunch of your patients as community pharmacy patients, then all of a sudden I have long-term care patients, I might have some assisted living, the expansion of long-term care at home, those patients are going to be in a different bucket than our community pharmacies. And then of course, 340B. So talk to us about some of that analysis and data opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, those are all contract related or contract based related. So, if you're again from a purchasing standpoint, if you're closed door long term care, you're servicing only long term care, you have accessibility to GPO contracts that are a little more aggressive than you would if you're like a combo. You're doing both retail long term care. But there's still advantages of doing that as well. So, talking to a GPO, making sure you have contracts on that combo shop is an important piece because there is some advantages there. A lot of times the generic contracts don't necessarily always come through because you're going to, your primary vendor is going to basically trump that in terms of, those contracts are going to take precedent, but it's still worth, pursuing that for that. On the 340B side, those are 340B contracts, and you would have a separate enrollment with your vendor for those items. And so, if you're a contractor that are serving somebody else, they might reimburse you the difference. You also chargeback wise, or if you actually have 340B contract and you're able to you're eligible, then you can actually have a separate enrollment and receive those 340B contract items. The inventory of that and and those tend to be very very competitive pricing. The inventory and the management of that is critical. That that's a high area for auditability. There's some exposure there, so it's really important that if you do mix, which you can mix inventory, if you are mixing inventory, that you're accounting for that inventory properly. You understand, it's being used for 340B, you're purchasing for 340B, using for 340B. So the ins and outs match is a really important piece as well.
Excellent. Excellent. So it's conference season for us. We're getting ready to go to McKesson Idea Share. We're going to have coverage at the Cardinal Health RBC. Shout out to Dr. Adam Robinson, who'll be covering that conference for us. And then we're also going to ThoughtSpot, which will be by Syncora, which is crazy. And this is the first year that Pharmacy Podcast Network will hit all three wholesaler shows. So I'm going to be able to have a very interesting perspective of being able to cover all three and listen in and be a fly on the wall and learn. I love learning. That's what I get out of it. But what's the next conference you're going to?
Actually, I am going to, I'm trying to think now. I don't have anything. There might be one this fall, and to be honest, I'm not actively involved. They let me know, hey, you're going to this conference. So
yeah,
we've been to quite a few. We've been on the acute side. We've been to several on the acute side of the business. We were at a couple of the GPO conferences, this spring. So, but yeah, there is another GPO conference this fall, buying group conference. But yeah, and I'm not at every conference. We have a team, our sales team, marketing team goes out. So it's a bunch of us that take the baton, so to speak, and go to the various conferences. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw Nathan at several, so he's out and about. So you get to spread your army to cover a bunch of them. I'm excited about SureCost Insight 2025. We're going to be there. We're going to be covering this show. This is November 13th through 14th of this year in the fall. If you have a interest in defining, redefining, planning, getting ready for 2026, and meeting with a bunch of operations people and a bunch of pharmacy owners that are diving into data analytics and unpeeling back all of the opportunities. There's going to be some workshops here. We're going to be having several networking events to really get into those data pieces. But Calvin, is there anything about SureCost Insights 2025 you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. This is our hosted user conference. So, whether you're a user or not a user, if you're interested, we'd love to have you join us. We reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to make arrangements for you to participate. One is it's a great venue to have everybody, from the procurement side of the business to be there to share ideas, right? The other is, we have speakers that are from the industry that will be speaking. Drug shortages, various different topics that I think they'll be, incredibly useful and informative. I'll be there. We're going to be talking about our product roadmap. We're going to be sharing ideas around inventory management, around drug shortages, around best practices. So I think there's just a ton of information that you would be getting and insight. And the other big piece, like you mentioned, is really around the networking too. So, talking to other folks that are in your industry, challenged with the same things you're challenged with, how they're solving for it, and how they're utilizing our system to provide those benefits. So really encourage folks to be there as well.
Well, we're excited to be part of it. Very proud to be press coverage. You'll be hearing more from Calvin and the team coming up on another episode of This Week in Pharmacy. We also have a 3-part series that's coming out, digging into and demystifying SureCost and the benefit to our independent community pharmacies and the ones that are growing businesses into other sectors, long-term care at home, expanding nursing centers, nursing care, assisted living. And if you're curious, reach out to SureCost. Go to SureCost.com and ask for a time with one of their consultants, even Calvin or Nathan, and just dig into some of the questions. And we're going to have some additional episodes upcoming this year with SureCost, because we're going to dig into other pharmacies who are experiencing the platform and being able to give listeners and pharmacy owners more information on how this has impacted their business. So, Calvin, thank you so much for being part of This Week in Pharmacy today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.